Prisons so brutal even guards fear them. Some prisons are designed to punish. Others are built to disappear people from society. But scattered across the United States are correctional facilities so violent, so unpredictable, and so psychologically crushing that even the officers trained to control them sometimes admit they never truly feel safe. Inside these walls, a single mistake can trigger riots, murders, hostage situations, or years of solitary confinement. Today we're counting down 10 American prisons whose reputations have become legendary, not because of Hollywood, but because of the very real fear they inspire. Before we begin, subscribe for more fact-based crime and prison documentaries, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel around the world. Number 10. Mississippi State Penitentiary, Parchman Farm. Few prisons carry a history as dark as Mississippi State Penitentiary, better known simply as Parchman. For more than a century, Parchman has represented both punishment and controversy. Opened in 1901, it was modeled after plantation labor, where incarcerated men worked vast cotton fields under strict supervision. Unlike modern correctional institutions built around rehabilitation, Parchman became known for hard labor, racial segregation, violence, and harsh living conditions. Life here has never been easy. Inmates often describe waking before sunrise, standing for multiple counts throughout the day, eating simple meals under constant surveillance, and returning to aging housing units where overcrowding has periodically become a serious issue. But it isn't only the prisoners who have faced danger. Throughout its history, correctional officers have worked inside aging infrastructure where blind spots, deteriorating buildings, and understaffing have created enormous security challenges. The prison has experienced riots, deadly assaults, escapes, and repeated investigations into inmate living conditions. Perhaps most frightening for officers is uncertainty. Every shift begins with the same question: will today stay routine, or become another emergency? Because once violence begins inside a prison built more than 100 years ago, controlling it becomes far more complicated than simply locking another door. And compared to what's coming next, Parchman almost seems manageable. Number 9. United States Penitentiary Lee. Located deep in rural Virginia, USP Lee was designed as a modern high-security federal prison. Its architecture is intimidating enough. Multiple security fences, electronic surveillance, controlled movement, armed towers overlooking every yard. Yet despite these safeguards, USP Lee has repeatedly made headlines because violence somehow continues finding a way inside. Many of its inmates are serving lengthy federal sentences involving organized crime, armed robbery, gang activity, and violent offenses. Inside federal prisons like USP Lee, unofficial power structures often matter just as much as official rules. Race, gang affiliation, geographic alliances. Every decision, from where someone sits during meals to who shares a recreation area, can carry consequences outsiders rarely understand. Correctional officers walk these same housing units every day. They know tensions rarely disappear. Instead, they simmer quietly until something as small as an unpaid gambling debt or disrespectful glance triggers an assault. Federal officers receive extensive training. But no amount of training completely removes uncertainty when supervising hundreds of inmates capable of coordinated violence. Several deadly incidents over the years have reinforced one reality: maximum security doesn't eliminate danger. Sometimes it merely contains it. And one prison farther west has earned an even darker reputation. Number 8. Pelican Bay State Prison. If isolation itself could become a weapon, few places demonstrate it more clearly than Pelican Bay State Prison. Opened in 1989 near California's rugged northern coastline, Pelican Bay was built with one purpose above nearly everything else: housing some of the state's most dangerous and influential inmates. The prison quickly became known worldwide because of one section in particular, the Security Housing Unit, commonly called the SHU. For years, inmates considered especially dangerous or believed to be affiliated with powerful prison gangs could spend years, and in some cases decades, in near total isolation. Unlike a traditional prison block where prisoners interact during meals, work assignments, or recreation, the SHU was designed to minimize nearly all human contact. A typical day could begin before sunrise. A correctional officer would approach a steel door, verify the inmate's identity through a narrow slot, and conduct the first security check of the morning. Meals arrived through the food port. Conversations were brief. Every movement followed a rigid schedule. When recreation time came, many inmates were escorted individually to small concrete exercise pens surrounded by towering walls instead of open yards. For officers, this environment created a different kind of pressure. There were no crowded recreation fields to supervise, but every interaction carried enormous risk. Many inmates housed in the SHU had histories of orchestrating violence, ordering gang activity from behind bars, or assaulting both prisoners and staff. Even routine tasks demanded extraordinary caution. Before opening a single cell door, officers often worked in teams. Restraints had to be applied carefully. Searches had to be methodical. One missed detail could allow a homemade weapon to remain hidden. Over the years, investigators uncovered an astonishing variety of improvised weapons inside Pelican Bay: sharpened pieces of metal, modified plastic utensils, fragments of broken fixtures carefully shaped into stabbing instruments. Each discovery served as another reminder that ingenuity often thrives where resources are scarce. Yet perhaps the prison's greatest challenge wasn't physical violence alone. It was influence. California's major prison gangs, including factions connected to organizations operating both inside and outside prison walls, were believed to use coded messages, legal mail, visitors, and elaborate communication methods to maintain authority far beyond their cells. Disrupting those networks became one of the institution's primary missions. Correctional staff weren't simply supervising inmates. They were attempting to interrupt criminal organizations that stretched across the state. That responsibility carried enormous pressure. Several officers have described learning to recognize subtle warning signs that most people would never notice. An unusual silence during movement, unexpected cooperation between rival groups, changes in body language during meal service. In prison, calm can sometimes be more concerning than chaos, because calm may mean something is being planned. Pelican Bay has also become the center of national debates over solitary confinement. Beginning in 2011, large-scale hunger strikes drew attention to the psychological effects of prolonged isolation. Thousands of incarcerated individuals across California participated, leading to years of legal challenges and policy reforms. Eventually, California significantly changed how inmates were assigned to long-term isolation, reducing the number of prisoners housed indefinitely in the SHU. Even with those reforms, Pelican Bay remains one of America's most secure correctional facilities. The combination of remote geography, sophisticated security, influential gang members, and decades of violent history continues to shape its reputation. For correctional officers, every shift demands constant awareness. The walls may be quiet. The corridors may appear empty. But experience has taught them that danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits patiently. And if Pelican Bay is a prison built around isolation, the next institution became infamous because isolation wasn't enough to stop the violence. Number 7. United States Penitentiary Big Sandy. Hidden among the mountains of eastern Kentucky sits United States Penitentiary Big Sandy. At first glance, it resembles many modern federal prisons. Concrete housing units, electronic gates, multiple security checkpoints, neatly maintained grounds. But appearances can be deceptive. Since opening in 2003, USP Big Sandy has housed inmates serving lengthy federal sentences for violent crimes, organized drug trafficking, racketeering, armed robbery, and homicide. Many arrive knowing they will spend decades behind these walls. Others know they may never leave alive. Unlike prisons where short-term inmates come and go, facilities like Big Sandy develop long-term social hierarchies. Every housing unit has its own unofficial rules. New arrivals quickly learn that observing is often safer than speaking. Questions can be interpreted as weakness. Looking at the wrong person for too long can be seen as disrespect. Sitting in the wrong area of the dining hall may create problems before breakfast is even finished. Experienced inmates understand these unwritten codes instinctively. Those who ignore them often learn the hard way. Correctional officers face a unique challenge in environments like this. Their job is not simply enforcing institutional rules. They must also recognize the invisible tensions developing beneath the surface. One argument over commissary, a disagreement during recreation, a gambling debt, an unpaid favor. Any one of these seemingly minor disputes can escalate into serious violence. Federal investigators have documented multiple homicides and serious assaults connected to organized prison groups operating inside Big Sandy. Improvised weapons remain a persistent concern. Many are astonishingly simple. A toothbrush melted and sharpened. A fragment of metal hidden inside clothing. Pieces of maintenance equipment secretly removed and reshaped over weeks or months. Every item entering the prison has potential value. Every object can become dangerous. Officers routinely conduct surprise searches of cells, common areas, and work assignments. Some searches produce nothing. Others uncover hidden weapons, unauthorized cell phones, narcotics, or coded gang communications. No officer ever knows which search will reveal the next major security threat. Then there are movement periods. To outsiders, moving inmates from one location to another may seem routine. Inside Big Sandy, it is one of the most carefully managed parts of the day. Groups are separated. Schedules are staggered. Certain inmates cannot cross paths. Housing units may be temporarily locked down while others move. Every step is planned because a chance encounter between rival individuals can have deadly consequences. Despite these precautions, violence has still erupted over the years. Some incidents last only seconds. Others trigger emergency responses involving specialized correctional teams equipped with protective gear, chemical agents, and less lethal equipment designed to restore order before chaos spreads throughout the institution. Perhaps the most difficult aspect of working inside Big Sandy is psychological rather than physical. Many officers spend years learning the personalities of inmates under their supervision. They recognize changes in routine. They notice unusual conversations. They understand who normally eats together, who avoids one another, and when something feels different. Those instincts cannot be taught in a classroom. They develop only through experience. Because in prisons like Big Sandy, the greatest warning sign is often one that never appears in an incident report. It's the feeling that something isn't right. And veterans know that feeling should never be ignored. As dangerous as Big Sandy can be, the next prison has witnessed violence on a scale so extreme that its name became known across the country for all the wrong reasons. Number 6. United States Penitentiary Atwater. In the heart of California's Central Valley stands United States Penitentiary Atwater, a federal high-security prison that has become synonymous with calculated violence and relentless tension. Unlike older prisons whose reputations were built over generations, Atwater earned national attention in a relatively short period of time. Since opening in the 1990s, the institution has housed inmates convicted of some of the country's most serious federal offenses, including organized crime, gang-related murders, armed robberies, large-scale narcotics trafficking, and violent racketeering. Many inmates arrive with long criminal histories. Others bring conflicts that began long before they entered federal custody. Those rivalries rarely disappear behind prison walls. Instead, they often become even more dangerous. Every morning begins with strict accountability. Before sunrise, correctional officers conduct formal counts to verify every inmate is exactly where they should be. No movement begins until every housing unit has been cleared. Meals are served under closely controlled conditions. Recreation is scheduled with careful attention to separating groups that intelligence officers believe could pose a threat to one another. Even something as simple as walking from a housing unit to the dining hall becomes a carefully coordinated security operation. To an outsider, it may appear excessive. To experienced officers, it is routine survival. One of the greatest concerns at Atwater has always been organized prison gangs. Federal intelligence teams continuously monitor communications, inmate behavior, and emerging conflicts in an effort to identify violence before it happens. But prediction is never perfect. In several well-documented incidents, attacks unfolded with astonishing speed. What appeared to be an ordinary recreation period suddenly became a coordinated assault involving multiple inmates. Improvised weapons emerged from hidden locations. Within seconds, officers found themselves rushing toward violence instead of away from it. That decision defines correctional work. While everyone else instinctively escapes danger, correctional officers move directly into it. Emergency response teams train repeatedly for these situations. Protective equipment, chemical agents, emergency extraction procedures, medical response protocols. Every drill exists because one day it may save lives. Yet no amount of preparation removes uncertainty. Some of the most dangerous incidents begin without warning. An inmate walking calmly through a corridor suddenly attacks another prisoner. A routine escort becomes a struggle. A disagreement in a housing unit escalates before staff have time to intervene. Each event reinforces the same lesson. Inside a high-security prison, normal can become catastrophic in moments. For officers, another challenge is emotional fatigue. Many spend years supervising the same inmates. They learn personalities. They recognize routines. They know who avoids conflict and who constantly creates it. That familiarity helps maintain order. But it also creates a dangerous illusion. People become predictable until they aren't. Veteran officers often say complacency is one of the greatest threats inside any prison. The day someone assumes nothing will happen is often the day everything changes. Atwater has also faced tragedies involving staff themselves. The dangers are not theoretical. Correctional officers have been assaulted while performing ordinary duties, reminding everyone working behind those walls that the uniform offers authority, but not immunity. Every shift ends with one simple hope: go home safely. That objective may sound ordinary. Inside Atwater, it is never guaranteed. And if Atwater demonstrates how quickly violence can erupt, the next prison has become famous because violence wasn't just frequent. For years, it seemed almost impossible to stop. Number 5. Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola. Louisiana State Penitentiary is so enormous that calling it a prison almost feels incomplete. Known simply as Angola, it occupies approximately 18,000 acres, making it one of the largest maximum security prisons in the United States. The land itself carries a painful history. Long before it became a prison, it operated as a plantation worked by enslaved people brought from the African nation of Angola, from which the prison eventually took its name. That history still casts a long shadow over the institution. Today, Angola houses thousands of inmates, many serving life sentences. Louisiana has historically imposed lengthy prison terms, meaning a significant portion of the population knows they may never again live outside the prison's fences. That reality shapes everything. When inmates believe they have little left to lose, maintaining order becomes extraordinarily difficult. Unlike many urban prisons, Angola functions almost like a self-contained community. It has multiple housing camps, industrial operations, educational programs, religious facilities, medical centers, agricultural fields, roads stretching for miles inside the perimeter. Some inmates work raising livestock. Others maintain infrastructure or participate in vocational programs. The scale is staggering. Yet beneath that appearance of routine lies one of America's most complex correctional environments. Years ago, Angola carried one of the darkest reputations in the country. Violence was widespread. Stabbings occurred with alarming frequency. Prison gangs exercised significant influence over daily life. Sexual violence was a serious problem. Corruption allegations repeatedly surfaced. Former inmates described living according to one unwritten rule above all others: protect yourself. Trust was rare. Weakness could be exploited. Respect had to be earned and constantly defended. Correctional officers faced enormous challenges simply because of the prison's size. Monitoring thousands of inmates spread across such an expansive property required careful coordination. Unlike compact urban prisons, Angola's geography itself created security concerns. Transportation between camps, field supervision, medical emergencies occurring miles apart. Every response demanded planning. Over the years, administrators introduced sweeping reforms intended to reduce violence. Faith-based initiatives expanded. Educational opportunities increased. Vocational training grew. Inmate hospice programs gained national recognition for allowing prisoners to care for fellow inmates during their final days. Many experts point to these changes as evidence that prison culture can evolve. Yet violence has never disappeared completely. When thousands of people, many convicted of homicide or other violent offenses, live together for decades, conflict remains inevitable. Officers continue conducting regular searches for contraband. Homemade weapons still surface. Fights still occur. Emergency lockdowns remain part of institutional life. One aspect that distinguishes Angola is the psychological environment. Many inmates know they will die there. That knowledge changes human behavior in unpredictable ways. Some pursue education. Some mentor younger prisoners. Some embrace religion. Others withdraw completely. And a small number continue engaging in violence because future consequences mean very little to someone already serving life without parole. Correctional officers must navigate all of these personalities every single day. The job requires firmness, patience, observation, and above all, consistency. Because inconsistency can undermine authority faster than almost anything else. Veteran officers often describe learning to read subtle behavioral changes. An inmate who suddenly stops attending work assignments. A usually quiet housing unit becoming unusually silent. Small details frequently become early warning signs. Inside Angola, experience is every bit as valuable as equipment. The prison has changed dramatically over the decades, but its immense size, violent history, and unique culture continue to command respect throughout American corrections. For many officers, simply covering their assigned area during a shift can mean walking miles through one of the largest prison complexes in the nation. And somehow. Number 4. United States Penitentiary Hazelton. Deep in the mountains of West Virginia sits a prison that correctional officers often refer to with quiet respect. United States Penitentiary Hazelton. To the public, it's another high-security federal prison. To those who have worked inside, it's a place where tension can build for weeks without a single visible warning. Opened in 2004, USP Hazelton was designed to house inmates convicted of some of the federal system's most violent crimes. Murderers, gang leaders, organized crime figures, violent repeat offenders, and inmates transferred from other institutions because of disciplinary problems have all spent time behind its walls. The prison's remote location wasn't chosen by accident. Like many modern federal penitentiaries, Hazelton was intentionally built far from major cities, reducing escape opportunities while making outside criminal coordination more difficult. But distance cannot eliminate danger already inside the fences. Every morning begins with precision. Before movement is authorized, officers conduct formal counts inside every housing unit. Cell doors remain locked until supervisors confirm every inmate has been accounted for. Only then does the institution slowly come to life. Breakfast, medical appointments, educational programs, work assignments, legal visits. Each movement follows carefully planned routes designed to minimize contact between rival inmates. To outsiders, these procedures may appear repetitive. Inside Hazelton, they are essential. One unexpected encounter between known enemies can trigger violence that spreads far beyond the individuals involved. Correctional intelligence plays an enormous role here. Officers don't simply react to violence. They spend countless hours trying to prevent it. Mail is monitored according to federal regulations. Telephone activity is reviewed. Patterns of association are documented. Investigators look for changes in gang activity, coded communication, and suspicious financial transactions that could signal an impending attack. Sometimes those efforts work. Sometimes they don't. Hazelton has witnessed multiple homicides over the years, many occurring with shocking speed. In several incidents, victims were attacked before nearby staff had time to intervene. Improvised weapons, often carefully hidden for weeks or months, appeared within seconds. Medical teams rushed to scenes already secured by responding officers. Entire housing units were immediately locked down while investigators searched for additional weapons and identified witnesses. Each homicide triggered months of investigation. Every assault became another lesson. How was the weapon made? How was it hidden? Could intelligence have detected the conflict earlier? Could movement procedures be improved? Inside corrections, every major incident changes future policy. The prison itself becomes a classroom. But no amount of policy can completely remove one constant reality. Many inmates have nothing left to lose. Some are serving multiple life sentences. Others are already decades into prison terms that stretch beyond their natural lives. For individuals in that position, disciplinary sanctions often carry little deterrent value. That reality creates one of the greatest challenges correctional officers face. Traditional punishment loses effectiveness when freedom is no longer attainable. Instead, officers rely heavily on consistency, communication, and intelligence gathering to maintain stability. Hazelton has also become known for housing inmates transferred from other federal institutions after serious disciplinary problems. When one prison cannot safely manage an individual, another may receive the transfer. That means officers frequently supervise inmates already known for violent behavior. There are no surprises about the level of risk. Everyone understands the assignment. Yet perhaps the greatest psychological burden falls not on the inmates, but on the staff. Imagine beginning every workday knowing that dozens of people under your supervision have histories of homicide. Imagine opening cell doors while wondering whether today's routine escort will remain routine. Imagine responding toward violence instead of away from it. That is correctional work. The public rarely sees those moments. They see prison walls. Officers see the people behind them. Veteran staff often speak about one particular habit that develops over time. They stop relaxing. Even after years on the job, every sound becomes important. Every unusual silence matters. Every movement is observed. Because complacency has ended careers, and, in some cases, lives. And if Hazelton demonstrates how dangerous high-security federal prisons can become, the next prison earned its reputation after one of the deadliest prison riots in American history. Number 3. United States Penitentiary Atlanta. Some prisons become infamous because of who they house. Others because of what happened inside them. United States Penitentiary Atlanta is remembered for both. Opened in 1902, it is one of the oldest federal penitentiaries still standing. Its massive brick buildings have held organized crime bosses, kidnappers, bank robbers, spies, notorious fraudsters, and violent offenders for well over a century. Generations of correctional officers have walked these same corridors. The prison has witnessed world wars, prohibition, the rise of organized crime, the war on drugs, and modern federal law enforcement. Its history mirrors the history of American corrections itself. But one event forever changed its reputation. In November 1987, tensions that had been building for months finally exploded. At the center of the crisis was immigration policy. Hundreds of Cuban detainees being held at the prison feared they would soon be deported. As anxiety grew, inmates launched a coordinated uprising. Within hours, large sections of the institution fell out of staff control. Correctional officers fought to contain the situation, but the scale of the riot quickly overwhelmed available resources. Dozens of staff members were taken hostage. The inmates fortified positions inside the prison, using furniture, makeshift barricades, and controlled access points to slow any rescue attempt. Negotiators faced an impossible challenge. Every decision affected lives. For 11 days, the standoff continued. Outside the prison, federal authorities coordinated around the clock. Inside, correctional staff who had escaped waited anxiously while their colleagues remained captive. The uncertainty was unbearable. No one knew exactly how the crisis would end. Negotiators worked patiently, avoiding a violent assault that could have resulted in mass casualties. Eventually, the hostages were released, and control of the institution was restored without the catastrophic bloodshed many had feared. The riot became one of the most significant prison disturbances in federal history. For correctional professionals across the country, it reinforced painful lessons: understaffing, communication failures, population pressures, intelligence gaps. Every weakness inside a prison can become dangerous when combined at the wrong moment. In the years that followed, federal correctional procedures evolved. Emergency response planning improved. Specialized tactical teams expanded. Hostage negotiation became more sophisticated. Large-scale disturbance training became increasingly important. USP Atlanta itself also changed. Its mission shifted over time, and today it primarily operates as an administrative facility with lower security populations than in previous decades. Yet its history remains impossible to separate from its identity. The prison's old walls still stand. The narrow corridors remain. The heavy steel doors still close with the same unmistakable sound heard by officers generations ago. Walking through those halls means walking through more than a century of correctional history. Every brick has witnessed another chapter. Some inspiring, some tragic, some almost impossible to imagine. And if Atlanta reminds us how quickly control can disappear, the next prison is feared because maintaining control has always been one of the hardest challenges of all. Number 2, California State Prison, Corcoran. Few prisons in America have been studied, debated, and scrutinized as intensely as California State Prison, Corcoran. Located in California's San Joaquin Valley, Corcoran opened in 1988 during a period when the state's prison population was rapidly expanding. From the beginning, it was designed to house some of California's highest-risk inmates. Many arrived with extensive histories of violence. Others came as validated members of powerful prison gangs whose influence extended far beyond prison walls. Correctional officers quickly realized that maintaining order here would require far more than locked doors and perimeter fences. Every day inside Corcoran follows an exact rhythm. Before dawn, officers begin formal counts. Housing units remain secured until every inmate has been accounted for. Breakfast is conducted according to carefully controlled movement schedules. Medical appointments, legal visits, educational programs, and recreation all occur under strict supervision. Nothing is left to chance. Even the recreation yards themselves are carefully managed. Certain inmates can never be allowed onto the same yard at the same time. Others require individual exercise because intelligence indicates they would immediately become targets if placed in a group setting. To outsiders, these restrictions may seem excessive. Inside Corcoran, they are considered necessary. The prison has long dealt with inmates affiliated with some of California's most influential prison gangs. Correctional intelligence officers spend countless hours reviewing incident reports, monitoring communications permitted under institutional rules, and identifying changing alliances between inmate groups. A disagreement hundreds of miles away on the streets can eventually surface inside Corcoran months later. Prisons do not exist in isolation. They often reflect conflicts already unfolding outside their walls. That connection creates extraordinary challenges for staff. An officer may unknowingly interrupt a planned assault simply by changing an inmate's movement schedule. Another may prevent violence because years of experience allowed them to recognize subtle behavioral changes. Perhaps two rivals suddenly refuse to enter the dining hall. Perhaps a housing unit becomes unusually quiet. Perhaps inmates begin voluntarily locking themselves inside cells before recreation. To experienced correctional staff, these are not random events. They are warning signs. One of Corcoran's defining characteristics has always been the constant balance between security and control. Use too little force during a violent disturbance and lives may be lost. Use too much and every action will be examined by investigators, attorneys, and the courts. That balance has placed Corcoran at the center of national controversy more than once. Throughout the 1990s, the prison became the focus of multiple investigations involving the use of force by correctional staff during violent incidents in recreation yards. Several inmate deaths following officer shootings generated years of legal scrutiny, public debate, and policy reviews. Federal investigations examined whether institutional practices adequately protected both inmates and staff. The cases drew nationwide attention. For correctional officers, however, the reality remained painfully simple. When violence erupts inside a prison yard, decisions must often be made within seconds. There is rarely time for lengthy deliberation. An officer may see an inmate armed with a homemade weapon rushing toward another prisoner. Every second counts. Every decision carries consequences. That responsibility weighs heavily on those who wear the uniform. Beyond the headlines, daily life inside Corcoran remains built around vigilance. Cell searches occur regularly. Metal detectors screen movement. Housing units undergo surprise inspections. Emergency response teams remain prepared for disturbances at any hour of the day or night. Officers learn that routine is their greatest ally. The moment routine disappears, concern begins. Veteran staff often describe prison work as a profession where nothing exciting happening is considered a successful day. The safest shift is the one no one remembers. Unfortunately, Corcoran has experienced enough extraordinary incidents that many shifts are remembered for years. The institution has evolved significantly since its early decades. Security procedures have changed. Training has improved. Oversight has expanded. Yet its reputation remains firmly established as one of the most demanding correctional assignments in California. For many officers, working at Corcoran requires accepting one uncomfortable truth. Every shift begins with a plan. Not every shift ends according to that plan. And now, only one prison remains. A place whose name has become almost synonymous with violence, overcrowding, corruption, and fear. A prison so notorious that for decades, both inmates and correctional officers understood one unsettling reality. Simply making it through the day could be considered a victory. Number 1. Attica Correctional Facility. Some prisons are remembered for the criminals they held. Attica is remembered because it changed American prison history forever. Opened in 1931, Attica Correctional Facility was built as a maximum security prison designed to confine New York's most dangerous offenders. Its towering walls and imposing architecture projected authority. But behind those walls, overcrowding, strict discipline, racial tension, limited privileges, and deteriorating living conditions created an environment where frustration steadily intensified. By the early 1970s, many inmates believed they had little hope of meaningful change. Correctional officers, meanwhile, worked in an increasingly tense environment where even routine interactions carried the possibility of confrontation. Then came September 9, 1971. A seemingly routine incident escalated into one of the most infamous prison uprisings in American history. Hundreds of inmates seized control of large sections of the prison. More than 40 correctional employees and civilian workers were taken hostage. Within hours, Attica had effectively fallen out of state control. Inside the prison, inmates organized themselves with surprising speed. Some established security around the occupied areas. Others negotiated with outside observers. Demands included improved living conditions, better medical care, educational opportunities, religious freedom, and greater protection from abuse. Outside the walls, state officials faced an impossible decision. Every hour that passed increased uncertainty. Negotiators attempted to reach a peaceful resolution while families of the hostages waited anxiously for news. Correctional officers who had escaped the prison could only watch from outside, hoping their colleagues would survive. For 4 days the nation watched. Then negotiations collapsed. On September 13th, state authorities ordered law enforcement officers to retake the prison. What followed remains one of the deadliest prison confrontations in American history. Troopers entered through clouds of tear gas as gunfire echoed across the prison yard. When the operation ended, 43 people were dead, including hostages and inmates. Dozens more were wounded. The tragedy permanently reshaped discussions about prison management, hostage negotiations, use of force, and inmate rights across the United States. For correctional officers everywhere, Attica became a case study unlike any other. Training programs changed. Emergency planning evolved. Communication strategies improved. The importance of intelligence gathering inside prisons became even more widely recognized. Even today, decades later, Attica continues to house maximum security inmates under strict security measures. Modern officers working there inherit not only the institution, but its history. Every corridor reminds them that maintaining order inside a prison depends on more than physical barriers. It depends on leadership, preparation, professionalism, and the ability to recognize danger before it becomes disaster. Because once control is lost inside a prison, regaining it may come at an unimaginable cost. The story of Attica serves as a reminder that prisons are among the most complex institutions in society. They are places where law, psychology, security, and human behavior intersect every hour of every day. For correctional officers, the challenge is not simply guarding walls. It is managing environments where a single decision can affect hundreds of lives. And while many of these prisons have changed over the years through reforms, improved training, and modern security practices, their histories continue to shape how correctional professionals approach one of the most demanding jobs in public service. The names on this list are more than famous prisons. They are reminders of what can happen when violence, desperation, and confinement collide behind locked gates. Some of these institutions have become safer than they once were. Others continue to face serious challenges. But every one of them has earned a place in the history of American corrections, not simply because inmates feared them, but because even the people responsible for maintaining order understood that every shift carried risks few professions ever experience. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't where people are sentenced. It's where others must return to work the next morning. If you found this documentary informative, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more fact-based stories from inside America's most dangerous prisons and criminal justice system. Let us know in the comments which prison shocked you the most, or which one you think deserves its own full documentary. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next documentary.